medication wasn't really a thing for that in the mid 90s. So just kind of suffered through life. But my doctor put me on it recently, Dr. Rudnick, mostly to address my energy level dropping. And it has, well, here's what happened. Put me on it around March, right? And it instantly turned my life around. Like it was like a door being opened that I didn't even know existed. Like a window that had been painted shut. Energy-wise, but focus.
Because it's meth.
Yeah, it increases the dopamine
it's awesome.
Released in your... anyway,
yeah.
So I was on that for a month or so, and I was doing great. I was focused. I was able to follow through with tasks. My life had changed. And then my liver function tests went through the roof. Drew can explain it to you,
in a negative way,
in a bad way. The liver enzymes that should be around 150 were 600.
Wow,
they were very bad, and it was a result of the chemo that I had just finished. And my doctor said, "Well, since everything gets processed through your liver, take you off all supplements, all meds, all everything, and put you on this drug called ursodiol that's gonna." Take everything down, hopefully. And it's been 6-ish months, 7 months, whatever it's been, and the numbers have ticked slowly down. So they're in a reasonable level. Those numbers that were 600 are now 250, which is high, but it's not alarmingly high. And so he's like, you can go back. I've been begging him for months. When can I go back in the Ritalin? When can I go back in the Ritalin? He gave me a thumbs up, and I am back, baby.
Sweet.
Yeah, I took it yesterday, noticed a little increase. Took it today, I'm back.
Yeah, I haven't taken it in a long time, but it's good stuff.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
I mean, for
I don't
people
think I've ever taken it.
I don't know that it would do much for you. You know what I mean? You don't have ADHD. Like it eliminates a lot of the things that I suffer from.
What is, how did it manifest itself, the ADHD in you?
I think they probably have some symptoms of ADHD back there if they got to those yet or not. But people think it's like, oh, you can't pay attention. That's a small part of it, but you actually are capable of paying attention for brief bursts of time, which is why I think I'm decent at what I do here with the drops and everything. But constantly going off task, being distracted all the time by, you're supposed to be doing this, but I meant to, this has to be done now. This minor thing must be done now. Constantly forgetting things, missing things, losing things. I lost my glasses in middle school monthly. I mean, imagine the stress that puts on your parents. Like, you get glasses gone, don't know where they are.
Yeah, it's just impending disorganization at all times. I totally understand. Back when I was in 6th grade, when nobody had really ever heard of Ritalin, they did a 2-day test to see if we had ADD. I don't know if this is part of it anymore. They told me, a child, to come on an empty stomach and started giving me Coca-Cola and asking me to do various math tests.
Really?
I thought I was going insane. So it archaic at the time, but yeah, I mean,
constantly losing things, constantly like
poor planning, disorganization.
Yes, to that point, it happened to be often for things that are so basic where I failed PE in middle school because I forgot to would forget daily to bring my green shorts that you had to wear as part of the PE uniform.
Did you have a locker?
I did, and I forgot the combination all the time. Yeah, it just classic signs that no one knew in 1991.
I had a lot of trouble. I don't think I had that, but I didn't have the gym clothes either most of the time. But my move was I would just use the gym clothes of whoever's locker was near me when their locker partner wasn't there.
Hey, Rodriguez.
Oh,
I'd walk out with Georgia Scare painted on the front of my gym shirt, and then
Feinstein, over here.
Mr. Walters would start yelling at me.
It would be a weekly occurrence where there would be an assignment or something you had to do for school, like come to school dressed in a tie for this event, whatever it was. And I would not only not do it, I would have no awareness of this. Like someone would look at me dressed not in a tie, like, dude, what the fuck? I'm like, what are you talking about?
What would Ritalin have done for you if you got hold of it when you were 13?
Probably eliminated many of those symptoms, many of those behaviors.
Like if he's a tree
But
with,
what
I can't
could
tell you.
you
I
have
can't tell you.
become?
I can't tell you
Question.
chemically.
I can tell you if he was
No, not chemically. I just mean, could you
Behaviorally.
have gone on to be a great sports journalist?
Maybe
Ben
I would
Stender
have.
stuck
Maybe I would
here.
have graduated college.
yeah.
And you didn't graduate
No,
college?
it's
Oh,
all
I thought you
good.
did.
No,
I don't
know
why I thought you
a
did.
radio person who graduated college. Not
Yeah, you do.
You
Oh.
graduated?
Yeah.
God bless you. I know one radio person who graduated college.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of a mind. It attracts a radio attracts a certain breed. It's a little self-selecting, and rules and institutions are probably don't fit well with those people. But you took Ritalin as well.
Oh yeah.
For how long?
Many years.
Many
I
years.
stopped.
You're much younger than me.
That's
so.
right. I stopped when I got like maybe my second year of college because people kept bumming it off of me to like snort, and I was like, this is not. I'm not using it. They can get it themselves. And I stopped using it because I didn't like the way it made me feel. But there's so many more options now besides Ritalin. I was probably on too much, and now I just you put up with what you put up with because I'm not on anything.
Oh yeah. Maybe a little. Ryan, give her a little of the Ritalin.
Buddy,
spit at her.
Imagine finding a life-changing medication in your 40s twice. But you know what I mean? Like, literally
every decade,
having your life dramatically improve one day.
Any liver function issues, not functions, but test-wise.
No, I just got a test yesterday. The number had gone down significantly into a more reasonable range, like I said, and maybe the medical people listening can understand or explain, but apparently Ritalin is not processed by the liver. It is processed in a different way. So they're like, you're all good for the Ritalin.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been described as on the spectrum with a lot of things, but
you do not suffer from ADHD.
I don't. I have a pretty good at tasks and things like that. And
You're what happens if you take too much Ritalin.
Yeah,
very task-oriented, hyper-focused.
Not just hyper-focused, but the follow-through. You see almost everything you do to the end, which is a quality I wish I had.
Yeah, or I surround myself with people who'll do it for me.
Either way, you have a system to getting things done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and Gina, you got blood drawn.
Yeah, she did a whole thing. And it was just one of those things. Okay, I've been having a lot of dizzy spells. And just kind of like my head will go out for a second. It happens here. That's why I want to sit, but I'm afraid I'm going to knock into this TV. And I have them constantly. And then I heard of this thing called the Epley maneuver, and that you use that because sometimes the ear crystals in your ear canal get dislodged and moved where they're not supposed to, and so you get like a little woozy.
My doctor just told me about that.
It's a thing.
That's so weird.
So I thought that was it, and I did the Epley maneuver. It doesn't help. 2 days ago, I threw up. I freaked out. I had a panic attack on my bathroom floor. Andy, God bless him. I am the worst. I'm bringing the fan. Go away. Come here. No, go away. Open the window. But you're crying. Open the window. Okay, I'm just going to open it a little. I can't take it. So I just had a doctor's appointment. I have to go to a cardiologist because I get this like little heart flutter, but it's probably nothing. And she just did all this blood stuff. And then because now my wellness holistic doctor who used to be on Cahuenga in this fabulous spa is in the mall. As I was leaving, the nurse, and by the way, they had the cutest like senior citizen aerobic class going on outside
Silver
Macy's.
sneakers?
Is that what it's called?
Sometimes.
Oh my God, it was
it's
adorable.
funny.
But she chased me down and said, "Do you want to know your like reproductive numbers?" And I was like, I mean, if you want, if it's free, I think that ship's probably filled. But she's like, "Yeah, we'll run it." And then right outside Sephora, very surreal, she goes, "Well, when was the date of your last period?" And I'm telling her, and she's like, "Okay, now you got to count. Are you on the 19th day?" That I was like, "I don't know." Just
in the mall.
I'm in front of Sephora. This just happened. So we'll find out. We'll just double check that I'm eggless, I guess. I don't know why. She really wanted to know.
Can they tell that from a blood test?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do that with the blood test, but a lot of period talk these days.
Hot period talk.
I grew up in a world where that was taboo. Even the mom and the daughter couldn't really talk about it alone on the beach or wherever they were. They just talked about the not too fresh feeling. That was a douche thing.
Ask me what my period talk was with my mom.
What was your period
None.
talk? Yeah, good. Let's keep it that way.
Didn't happen. And also, I found this meme that I love at some woman at a protest that says, "Anything you can do, we can do bleeding."
Oh,
that's my new favorite.
All right. Speaking of that, there's a story that is making the rounds out of Vermont high school. Dawson has it. But it'll ties into a bigger subject for me.
Randolph, Vermont. A girls' high school volleyball team has reportedly been banned from its own locker room after some players objected to allowing a transgender player to be present while the team was changing clothes. In Vermont, the home of the Randolph High School, state policy dictates that transgender students can play sports and use facilities that correspond to their desired gender. The state law allows for trans students to play on Randolph High's girls volleyball team.
It's the desired gender part that's fucked everything up.
Apparently.
You cross over and become this, then use that. If you think yourself a woman and the problem is all the nomenclatures like the transgender. Did the person dress as a woman? Did he present as a woman? Because now you just announce you're a woman and then you go into the girls' locker room and the reports were this guy sat there and kind of ogled the chicks, which is what I would do if I was 17. And look, my buddy Ray, Chris, and me would have just been bivouacked in the girls' locker room hiding under the shield of being a woman or think ourselves as a woman.
This reeks of dare. Somebody dared this guy to go in there, tell him you're a woman.
It's what was going to happen when you do this. Mm-hmm. If you say you can travel with your dog, but only if it'll quickly turn into this. Yeah. This is what this is turning into. It's a simple solution. You have to cross over into that. Otherwise, you got to fucking lump it for a couple of years. It's not going to be easy. But anyway, the solution to the problem.
Adding to this, the trans athlete allegedly made an inappropriate remark to other players on the team while they were all changing, which made some uncomfortable. One student who spoke with a news outlet claimed that the issue has become a school-wide controversy. It's a huge thing. Everyone's asking, so why aren't you allowed in the locker room? Blake Allen, one of the affected volleyball players, reportedly said, "My mom wants me to do this interview to try to make a change," she told the news. "I feel like, for stating my opinion, that I don't want a biological man changing with me, that I should not have harassment charges or bullying charges. They should all be dropped." Allen claims that several other students and some parents raised complaints about allowing the transgender athlete inside the girls' locker room. Those concerns were all reportedly shot down by the school officials, who pointed to the state law which says transgender athletes are allowed to choose whichever locker room they wish. One parent, who spoke with the Daily Signal, was reportedly bewildered by that the school would prioritize the transgender students' needs over their daughters. "We allowed a child who was biologically the opposite sex, male, go into a locker room where biologically girls were getting fully changed," the unnamed mom reported. "The biological child was not changing and sat in the back and watched girls getting changed.
Are you shitting me?
That made girls feel uncomfortable, made girls feel violated and not protected."
Yeah, understandable.
Yep.
In response to the complaints, Randolph High said in a letter to parents it has, quote, "plenty of space where students who feel uncomfortable with the laws may change in privacy."
So meaning the girls' locker room. It's called the girls' locker room, but now the volleyball team has to go change outside of the girls' locker room or something. They take turns changing in a stall. And then I think it's somewhere in this story, because I was talking about it with Drew, now they've just closed the locker room. They just went,
so nobody can change.
It.
What's the end game here? The volleyball team quits en masse and there's no season? Congratulations.
I don't know, but there's a thing which is we need to protect the most vulnerable, like even if it's one. But if that most vulnerable is a fucking wackadoodle and it's fucking it up for everyone else, then that's no way to run society. So if you go, like they took all the curbs around here many years ago and they turned them into ramps. All the corner curbs. Yeah. And you go, all right, people in wheelchairs, that makes sense. Once in a while. And so you go, okay, this is good. When I used to live under the Hollywood sign up in Hollywoodland, I had a house that had about 86 stairs to get to the front door. Like it was
not up to code.
No, hope you had a funicular.
If you had a fucking load of groceries or God forbid, washing machine or something, it was just Sherpas and mules and all day. I mean, everything was gut busting to get up to that thing. And when I was remodeling it, the inspector came by and he was looking at the bathroom door and he said, it's got to be, if you're going to work on the bathroom, you got to expand the door. The old door was like 28 inches wide. He said, it's got to be 32.
So it could have been grandfathered in, but since you were doing work, you had to
once you break
code.
it open, now you got to meet code. And I said, I knew the code. So I said, 32 for what? And he said, that's the code. I said, yeah, well, you know why it's 32? It's for wheelchair access. I said, nobody is going.
How could they get here?
And once in a while, I'll go to a club like we were just at in Austin, and there's like 3 steps, Chris will remember, to get up to the stage level and walk in.
Yeah.
They have a 10-foot by 10-foot area cleared for a mechanical handicap, ramp. I mean, look, again, the curb, sensible, makes good sense. You making the club owner spend $40,000 so that somebody could mechanically be scissor lifted up 3.5 feet when you could easily just, I've done it. When my grandmother was in a wheelchair for, years, we would have to just kind of back it up.
Yeah.
My mom, you sort of back it, pop it up. All very doable. So is it a good idea or isn't it a good idea? Well, the answer is it is to a point, and then you have to stop. If you've gone under the knife, you've had the surgery, you become a woman, then by all means, use the locker room and and maybe there's some, wiggle room for pre-op, but I'm
hormone replacement.
I'm taking hormone replacements, and I've lived as a woman for several years. Okay, maybe there's some wiggle room there. You deciding you're a chick, whether you're in prison and wanting to go to a women's prison with a beard and then rape someone and then impregnate them, or just walk into the ladies' locker room at your high school, that's where we go off the fucking rails. And that's where that's where the adults come in. That's where we go, you are blind. You may travel with your dog on this Delta flight. You are a nutty broad from Beverly Hills and you have 3 fucking dogs. You may not do this.
Yeah.
It's not. It's called nuance.
Yeah.
It's called
exceptions
being
are the rule.
sensible.
Well,
yes.
it's finding the very center of the Venn diagram. Now it's just 2 overlapping circles.
Right. Amherst. And then you get into this weird position where the people that cheer on women's rights are now cheering on transgender rights, and the women are being terrorized by the transgender person who's not really transgender. Now you're hurting women, so now we're in some weird murky area of, are you for women, women's sports, or they're getting their ass kicked by the dude who's got his junk tucked in the 2000 freestyle. Yes, you were certainly going to hurt yourselves.
But at the very least, you can't audit the locker room. It's if you're going to change, by all means change. It's not like a class you can just audit from the bench.
I'm going to check this out, see if it's for me.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes, whether it's a wheelchair or you being trapped inside a man's body, you got to lump it a little bit sometimes. We cannot bend society around everyone who has a disability or thought. Sometimes there's a little lumping it. Sometimes you got to go backstage at the comedy club and get the bouncer to pop you up the 3 steps so you can roll out onto stage. And in a related story out of Amherst, because Drew's pissed because he used to go to Amherst.
The Flying Fauntleroys?
No, the Dutchman or something, right?
No, I said they're the Little Lord. No, the hemophiliac, Little Lord Fauntleroys. No. They're the Lord Jeffs.
There we go.
Although I think that had to go.
Oh, right.
I think.
Did we discover who Lord Jeff was?
He gave Indians blankets with smallpox in it or something, and of course. But the point is, Drew gets his alumni "Could you donate?" thing, and he's like, "Fuck you." He's so done with Amherst.
Yes, they could. Anyway,
Amherst now.
Drew turns his back on a lot of schools that he went to.
Yes, he hates them all.
This is on the UCLA side of the game.
That's pussy whipped. Wife went to USC.
He went to USC.
He went to USC. Wife went to UCLA. Amherst has they've instituted this thing that if anyone in any class, including the students or the teacher, anonymously wants everyone to wear a mask. If one person wants everyone to mask up, then everyone has to mask up. Again, it's one fucking hypochondriac pussy who's nuts at this point if you feel like you need to wear a mask.
Speaking of nuts, it's the Southwest nut policy.
Right. One person's allergic on the flight, and thus the nut shall be removed. And by the way, here's how it worked. The only thing that was good about a Southwest flight were the nuts. And the anticipation of whether they switched from regular peanuts to honey roasted. At a certain point, they'd make the swap.
Seasonal.
I would plan my travels accordingly. Now, they went from everyone gets nuts to my son has a peanut allergy, removed from the flight on certain flights, to and replaced with pretzels, now to nuts gone altogether and replaced with the carbious, sodium-filled, dried, hard pretzel stick. So that's the trajectory of it. I have a clip that I think you guys will enjoy. I like to rail about Nutty Chick Think.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it
come
once
up,
or twice.
on the show.
But some people say, well, maybe it's mechanical versus emotional. So we'll say mechanical versus emotional.
way to
But
put it.
I have a good clip of I saw on Tucker last night. New Orleans has become the murder capital of the United States
we're
number
now.
one.
Yeah, well, not the world,
Wait,
or maybe the world.
They surpassed Chicago?
Evidently,
Left them in the dust.
New Orleans, maybe not Louisiana, but New Orleans is the murder capital city in the United States, and in a real moment of chick think,
Okay.
we'll listen to what the mayor's plan is to remedy that. But I'll play the lead up to it. Sorry, I do not know if it was out of context, but
How about that's unacceptable? We're going to make changes.
I want my constituents to be safe.
also she doesn't believe the statistics because those are governmental. Because
But she's the government.
You want a ma and pa accounting firm for fatalities in your city, you know?
Guy with a visor and the crank.
Family owned mortician, or family owned coroner, get tallying up those values. First things first, you can speculate. Like people will go, how many illegal aliens are in this country? And some people go 10 million, and others go, I think it's as high as 20 million. And the answer is there's no way to really know.
Sure.
You can go COVID deaths. You go, well, 3 million COVID deaths. And you go, well, a lot of those people had gunshot wounds or motorcycle accidents who had COVID. They died with COVID, but some were in in hospice. How do we really? There's certain statistics that are difficult to they're hard to vet.
Yeah.
And I'll give you that. So you got to pick this thing. Dead people murdered in your city. That's
Cut and dry.
They get that one. They don't round up or round down. They go like 482. Then they'll go maybe 500, 1,000.
No, wait, no.
It never ends in ish.
Yeah, it's doable, but she's not feeling it. Disagrees with the thought of it, and then not a fan of the government.
That's what I'm stuck on. She's the government.
She's the mayor
She's in
the
politics.
city.
How is she suddenly somebody else?
yes.
Is she trying to say we beefed with the numbers to get more funding for this? Like it's governmental?
Well, she goes on to then kind of explain who's getting murdered, which is good.
I do not embrace that at all. I don't embrace it because, one, that is the data even used for that is more of a governmental term for that. It's not based on what's actually happening.
In spite of national and world headlines showing New Orleans' murder rate is 17 times higher than New York City's, the mayor downplayed the severity of the problem.
Mostly all of them are aligned by people who know one another, not random at all.
Still murder.
Yeah. Is that better?
Your uncle kills you.
So she just.
Here's the thing about these murders. Some are lovers.
These are family members. Come on now.
This is somebody who says.
This is a picnic that went south.
Yes, that's it. Come to New Orleans. You won't be shot randomly. These are just people killing each other in their houses.
Don't get to know anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Come to Carnival.
Mind your P's and Q's, your own beeswax. And occasionally someone's gonna get clipped by a stray bullet that's meant for a family member or neighbor, right?
It happens.
All right. Now, as Dr. Drew and everyone used to tell me 25 years ago, if we only had women in charge, we'd have a much better society. Turns out women are pretty shitty at running things as well.
All right.
So guys fuck it up, and she seemed. I see. To me, I'm like, oh, this person seems clinically insane.
Yeah, they were saying words that didn't make sense.
But it'll work, and then she'll work, and this is why I don't like the identity shit. Because like, hey, we got a black woman. That's right. Yeah, but who's getting killed? A lot of black kids. Well, yeah, but she's one of us. We'll go with her. All right.
That
good.
was at the quinceanera. That doesn't count.
See how that works out. Yeah, I don't know if there's that many quinceañeras out
I don't
there.
know.
But
Is that not?
probably not as big a thing as it is out here in SoCal.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, bat mitzvah.
My mean grandma. Yeah.
Nailed it.
I was thinking about her because we're talking about Harry and her old days, and I was thinking about these old stories, and also I realized as we were watching that clip where she was explaining I didn't have any charisma or charm. The people she hung out with all were doing, like as Drew talks about Pam Anderson being a female impersonator. They were artist impersonators. They wore berets, they wore beads, they had all the accoutrements of an artist.
Yeah.
They loved dance and they loved poetry. None of them ever made a fucking penny in any artistic endeavor ever. They were fucking hacks. My grandmother worked at the VA for 40 years. She hated every second of it for the man.
Is that not the ultimate tribute to the artist lifestyle? Never making a penny?
Yes, I guess,
That's a weird way.
if you put the word starving in front of it. But she never looked at me, who created TV shows and wrote books and did stand-up and that as an artist, because I just wore shorts and a T-shirt, and she didn't. I had none of the trappings of it. I was a straight, if only I was gay, I could have been recognized. Like if I sucked a mean cock, then my grandmother would have recognized me as the artist I was.
Not too late.
But I was not, because I didn't blow dudes or wear beads. In her mind, I could not be an artist.
Well,
she knew what an
fault is
artist
that?
looked like. I guess it is on me, but I was doing this crazy math, which was my grandmother was born in 1913, Gary figured out. And I was reliving this story of the Feast of San Gennaro and my grandmother, and how my grandmother couldn't tolerate anybody excelling around her. Her thing was, I got to knock you down. I got to take you down a peg. And sometimes she would even laugh about it, go, oh, you're big star, getting too big for your britches. That's why I'm here, And I was like,
But it wasn't even excelling. It was being celebrated.
Right. But also, you were doing this shit when I was 9, bitch. When my parents were divorced and I was fucking sleeping in a 1-bedroom with no air conditioning and trying to find food. Why keep me grounded then?
But besides you and Brian, there's no such thing as a grandmother whose job is to knock you down a peg. That's not what grandmother's role is.
In my grandma's defense, she was ornery and cranky and mean and all the things you described. She was sweet to me. You know what I mean? She was never the pig take you down a peg.
I was thinking about this story, which encapsulated my family perfectly, because it was my grandmother's, I think it must have been her 92nd birthday. It was right around the time of the tape where I brought her the birthday cake. Could have been the next year. I don't know, 92, 93, if you, in the annals of taking it to the grave. And we were sitting at some Thai restaurant with sister and, the husbands and the wives and the grandmas and the daughters and, we're all there. And my sister did her patented move, which is... Now, my grandma got it bad. My grandmother was aggressive. She was like, she'll knock you down a peg. My mom's thing was just sort of go along for the ride. When my grandmother was explaining over another dinner occasion to the out-of-town couple that I was big and fat and bursting out of my clothes and not aesthetically pleasing when I was in high school, my mom was just sitting there nodding as my grandmother was waxing on. And then at some point I had to explain them as an all-valley football player, and I lifted a lot of weights and I was bulkier.
We've
back
seen
then.
a lot of pictures of you throughout the years. Never once would I come close to describing you as any of those were. You maybe were a little soft as like a little kid, but like you were a kid.
As you're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're a kid.
I intentionally drank raw eggs and lived in the weight room to bulk
same.
myself up to become an all-valley high school football player, which I achieved. But to the couple from Texas, she was describing a kid with a thyroid issue who ate lunch alone. She wasn't She wasn't
Peanut butter
talking
out of
about
a
the
jar.
only guy in the team who made the first team All Valley on offense. There was and best defensive player. She was not describing that. She was describing a fat kid. And because it was coming from grandma, they were assuming that she was soft pedaling.
Right.
Yes.
That it
was much worse.
You would, if your grandson was morbidly obese, you describe him as husky.
She's being kind.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to stand up. Now, my mom was just sort of silently
Nodding.
going along with this attack.
You'd think that she would contradict her mom just because she hated her mom, so that'd be at least a way to stick it to her.
She got the gene from her mom, the put down gene, but she was also very depressed, so she didn't have the energy. She needed
to
some
do it.
Ritalin
She's
to
been down
step
over-
up. So she would just
Yeah.
sit there and kind of take it. So the story was my grandmother's 92nd birthday. I got baited into boasting.
Oh,
I got a boast bait. I would normally just sit at the table with the flock of very uninteresting people who weren't doing much of anything, and just what are you doing, Adam? What's going on? Just staying busy. I wouldn't start talking about shows or things or projects or whatever, because it immediately would just change the subject or get shot down or something. I learned how to navigate. I would just sit there and enjoy my Thai food. But at some point, my sister piped up, and she said, I was at the supermarket the other day in Topanga. I saw a big cardboard cutout of you, a display. I said, what is this? She said, I don't know.
Don't take checks from this person.
I said, cardboard cutout of me at the supermarket. Yeah. I said, what was it? I said, I don't know. Which is
Didn't
what
care to investigate?
Well, my sister got the trickle down
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
and she would, her thing would be like, "Is the comet puppet? Is the puppety show still on the comedy channel show?" And I'd go, "Yeah, we're doing Crank Anchors. Yeah, we do that show.
Whatever it's
What
called.
channel is that?" I don't know. You have to check
your local listings.
It's Comedy Central. Is that on the regular channel? Okay, I know you're a massive fan. Thank
Between
you for,
ABC and
thank you
NBC.
thank you for lavishing this praise. So I would just sort of sit there and just go. So she was saying, I saw the cutout. I said, I don't know what this is.
Was it in front of a Doritos display?
I'm intrigued, but I don't know what you're talking about. She said, there's something standing there with some display, like with maybe an Italian flag or something. And I was like, Precious Cheese is a sponsor of the Feast of San Gennaro, and we put on the Feast of San Gennaro, and that's in a week, and so it's probably an advertisement for the Feast of San Gennaro. And then
She said, I've got my tickets.
my mom piped up. By the way, no family member, even though they live in the town where the Feast of San Gennaro went on for 10 years.
I've been to more feasts.
I have ever attended the Feast of San Gennaro. But they... So my mom piped up and she said, what is this Feast of San Gennaro? We've done 7 of them so far. Right? So it's a 3-day weekend. It is 4.5 miles from where my mom lives. So I said, and this is my fault.
Yeah.
Now
you're engaged.
I got sucked in. And I made a grave error
rope
in
it
that
down.
I started talking about me and Jimmy and the Feast of San Gennaro. This was verboten. It was my fault.
You're not blameless
I should
in
have
this.
talked about myself or the feast, but I got kind of suckered into it. And I said, actually, it's a big event. Jimmy and I put it on every year. And I realized quickly this was going to go south if I was just talking about carnival rides and pizza slices and stuff. I said, because that table never stopped talking about their philanthropic endeavors, even though they didn't participate in any. But it was more like what fat cats could do for people from Biafra or something. I said, actually, we do raise a lot of money, and we give the money to the kids. And my grandmother yelled from across the table,
As though she was a Secret Service agent.
yes, she was just sitting there. Bon Jovi gave $1 million to Katrina relief. And everyone stopped and just turned toward her and went, $1 million.
Tell me more.
Do tell. That's right. I just heard it. Bon Jovi gave $1 million to Katrina relief. I looked up the date. The date was right around my grandmother's birthday. It was right around Katrina. The dates all line up with Feast of San Gennaro. And then we proceeded to talk about Bon Jovi. My 92-year-old woman. She's a huge Jovi fan.
I'm shocked that she knew who
loves
he was.
Richie Sambora. She doesn't know who Bon Jovi is.
She only knew the headline.
She just saw it on Oprah and blurted it out because she was crawling out of her skin because I was on second 18 of discussing my philanthropic endeavors, and it couldn't stand. Like, someone's got to make a move here. This is going out of. It's getting out of control. So
imagining the panicked look on your grandmother's
so she
wrinkled
yelled
face.
about Jovi, and we all talked about Bon Jovi for as long as we needed to. And then we got
clear
back,
the air.
and we got back to the meat crab or the curry chicken, or and I just left it. And of course, my mom never went. That's fantastic, but let him finish the story about San Gennaro. I want to know more. And it was perfect. It was diabolical. It was diabolical, and it worked perfectly. And I'll tell you how I know it worked perfectly. Because 1 year later, I was talking to my mom, and she said, like, oh, how about, me and John come over and we talk about bran muffins on Saturday. I said, well, this Saturday, I can't because this is San Gennaro weekend, and I got to be at the San Gennaro. And she went, oh, what's that?
Nice.
And I said, God damn it. It was perfect. She got her. Yeah. Worked perfectly. Yeah, that was the great Helen Gorok.
Two takeaways. A, no one in your family, or at least from that lineage, ever even, I was going to say perfected, but ever even dipped a toe in sitting with their own discomfort. It was not an option. Like, it's weird that you're uncomfortable because your grandson did something nice, whatever. Sit with it. Deal with it yourself. And also, why can't the San Gennaro Festival come back?
That's a really good question.
I really would love for that to happen.
Did you ever go? Were you on
no, because I wasn't in the know. I didn't really know what.
I went 1 year.
Anything.
It's really it was fantastic,
time.
and it's a very good example of the difference between Jimmy Kimmel and the old Brian Bishop, pre-medicated.
Please.
We were in New York. We would go down to Little Italy and enjoy ourselves, and we just sat there, and then they were throwing it's September, I guess. And we were there, and they were doing the Feast of San Gennaro. And then Jimmy just looked up and he went, "Why don't we have a Feast of San Gennaro?" I said, "I don't know. We don't have a Little Italy in Los Angeles, which is bizarre. We have
Little Ethiopia,
Little everything.
Filipino town.
we have a little everything.
Little Armenia.
By the way, don't live in a town that doesn't have a Little Italy. That's one of the markers. So P.F. Chang's and a Little Italy. So he just looked at me and he just went, "We should have our own." And I said, "Okay, fine." He said, "All right, when we get back, start planning." I said, "Okay." Then we got back.
To show up?
And he was like, "We're going to make this happen." And next thing you know, there was a Feast of San Gennaro. And it spun out. It turned into basically Tailhook. And it just got bigger and bigger. I don't mean the debauchery, but just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Jimmy was spending half the year planning the Feast of San Gennaro that he didn't get paid for. And every one of his family members was calling him, and he was dispatching them. You talk to the precious cheese guy, and Doug DeLuca, I'm not going to meet with the guy who makes the cannolis. You deal with that. And before you knew it, was taking up half of Jimmy's day.
Get Tommy Lasorda on the line.
Right, to do the Feast of San Gennaro. And so, my thing was this.
It's a 3-day festival.
God,
I will show up. I will auction off Shaq's shoe with you and give the money to the kids, but I'm not going to.
You're not going to talk to the vendors.
Not quitting my daytime job to become the ceremonial planner of the Feast of San Gennaro, which, by the way, gets you no pay, and all you have is someone's pissed off because you're supposed to comp them some tickets and you couldn't. It's just a huge pain in the ass.
Where do I come in the story? You said Jimmy and a young premedicated Brian. Did I miss it?
Jimmy, I'm saying a premedicated Brian would have never got the Feast of San Gennaro off the ground.
There
it would have been
Overwhelming.
It would have been a discussion in Little Italy in New York, and then never that would have been it.
100%
Right. The planning a festival is the exact opposite of what we were talking about, of it being symptomatic of ADHD,
Being
which is
overwhelmed with details.
it's tons and tons of moving parts, and you just have to have the Jimmy-esque mentality to be able to execute that. Yes.
Swinging back to your family, though it'll sound like a joke, do you think your mom would have cared a little bit more if it was called the Famine of San Gennaro?
I think she would have been down with that cause. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of food and a lot of fat people at
Missed
that place.
opportunity.
But a missed opportunity. But no, Grandma, big Jovi fan.
Yeah, at least she found an Italian.
She's never brought up Bon Jovi
That's so
before
weird.
or since, which is, and by the way, it's not like the next time I saw her, she was like, hey, following up on that Bon. She blurted it out in a panic because her grandson was getting praise for a philanthropic endeavor. That was, so she panicked.
Well,
Which
I
is a
hope you learned your
bizarre,
lesson.
it's an insane wiring. You think about that wiring and then take that wiring and apply it to everything that involves interactions.
So I'm not going to achieve, and I'll be damned if I let you achieve.
Good draw.
It's like, there's certain people that are like, there's that grandma that's like, here you go. Oh, could I have another piece of pie? And she kind of goes, really, really 2 pieces? Like, you sure you should be, there's that kind of
Yeah.
a put down, but
Yeah.
maybe it lives somewhere
Yeah.
in some sanity. Like maybe
the
the kid
controlling grandma is kind of a thing. Like,
maybe shouldn't have two
yeah,
pieces
don't
of
do that.
pie or
Yeah.
something or whatever it is. But this was just attack mode. Like, but the controlling grandma who didn't want you to have the second piece of pie would have celebrated the philanthropic endeavor.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
was my angle.
There you go.
All right, let's see here. Let me tell you about Simply Safe. Man, thinking about protecting your home, but waiting for the right time. Right now is the time. The Adam Carolla Show listeners get 40% off Best Home Security 2022. So says U.S. News and World Report. And I'd say that about covers it because that's the U.S. and the world. I use them. I trust them. Peel and stick. Batteries last up to 10 years. Stuff is very ergonomically well designed. 24/7 professional monitoring. Cost under $1 a day, less than half the cost of ADT's professional installed plans. Don't miss a chance to save big and protect your home. Get 40% off your order at simplysafe.com/Adam. Do that today. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes. Go to Simply Safe. That's simplysafe.com/Adam. Simply Safe, 2 I's in there, .com/Adam. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to pronounce everyone's name here.
You're going to do just fine.
All right. Smriti. Okay.
Kirubanandan.
Kirubanandan. All right.
I couldn't sit with the discomfort. I couldn't do it.
Kirubanandan and Richard Lackey. That one I got. We're talking about World Food Bank and lots of interesting technology and stories here. And we'll do that right after this.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Adam, I just saw a commercial for some kind of dog shelter rescue service, and at the very end, it ended up being a Subaru commercial. Didn't show one car. Fucking weird, man. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Well, that's the New World Order, and Subaru's the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
All right, let's see these names. Well, Richard Lackey has joined us. Let's start with the easy one. World Food Bank. And Smriti.
Say it fast.
Right. Kirubanandan.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah, both here from the World Food Bank, a very noble cause. And if you'd like information or you'd like to donate, you can visit worldfoodbank.org. So let's talk about the genesis of this. Is it you, Richard, who began this?
Yeah. I began it about just after the Philippines had their big incident. That was kind of the trigger for us.
And this is developing nations that mostly benefit from this. We're not dipping into it in the U.S. over here.
That's a really great question. The projects in the U.S. are different than the ones internationally. So internationally, when people are starving, they just want a bucket of rice. and some oil to cook with. In the U.S., we have to have chicken cacciatore and pasta primavera.
Yes, I know.
So, yeah, of course. And if it's not proper, as we saw in recent disasters, the people will do TikToks on the shameful side of the food and won't eat it. They'd rather starve than eat something that's
In
less
the
than
U.S.
that. In the U.S., right?
Yes.
So there we have a model where we upcycle. We're actually taking foods that are number twos and products that would otherwise go to waste, and we put them together in a package that has super high value, added minerals and vitamins, and we produce an energy bar and multiple foods, and then we can store them with the technology that allows us to store it for 20 years and
Wow.
pre-stage it so that it's just outside of those disaster-prone areas. And we're actually trying to move now into school systems so that we can take those foods and roll them into the
We talk about the food in the schools and how just devoid of nutrition it is, and what a kind of crime that is that we're feeding. We go, here's some free food, and it's all junk. And I don't know. You could speak to this. I was struck many years ago by watching a 60 Minutes special on a doctor, inventor, philanthropist who invented a product called Plumpy Nut, which was a peanut butter and sugar. I think it came in a little pouch, and before everything came in a pouch, and was bringing these villages on the brink of starvation, back to whatever. But at some point, Anderson Cooper said, "What about peanut allergies?" And the guy just went, "Oh, we don't. That's first world. We don't have time for that shit here. People are dying. We're not worried about a peanut allergy." But also, there's a biological thing. They're not slathering Purell on themselves, and they're not taking antibiotics every 10 minutes. They're living in nature. And so I grew up with 0 peanut allergies, and anyone who went to Colfax Elementary, now it's 46% of kids in Manhattan have a peanut allergy. So how do you guys deal with that? And have you seen the difference between the very developed nations and the ones that weren't, in terms of like allergies or things they could eat or process or that?
Yeah, I think, Adam, the food industry in the United States is completely different than Europe and India, right? We have hormones, we have antibiotics, we have everything kind of injected into everything we eat, and nothing is completely organic. And that's why I think we're seeing all these allergies and disease states higher in the United States than any other country. And, I'm sure there's other products which is processed in other countries, but I think the United States is much more inclined, and the FDA regulations are not as strict as they should be in other countries. And I think that's my honest opinion on why there are some allergies.
Well, if there's two ways to kind of approach things in life. You can look at data, which is fine, or you can just kind of look around, like when you go, what's going on with the homeless situation? And then some politician goes, these are mothers who have been put out of their brain. You go, I don't see these people. I see crazy people running around throwing feces. So that's what I'm seeing. And so that's where I get my data, And then I think my data.
That's just feces.
I don't embrace that data.
That's my data. I have not seen the hardworking, noble mother of 3 with her 3 kids looking for a job. I see crazy people trying to sword fight with rebar. But okay, that's my knowledge. I went from 0 to 35 without ever discussing what somebody couldn't eat at a dinner table. Nobody talked about I got to take the Pepsid AC, or I need this, or I have reflux, or I'm allergic to this.
Because you weren't eating with Jews.
It didn't. It's true.
My people.
My grandfather, though, was a stunt eater. You make fun of Jews,
stunt eater.
He loved cow tongue. He loved
wow.
goose liver.
Yeah.
He loved all the
Intense.
giblets and all the stuff all the shit you
Menudo.
throw out. He
God
wanted
bless
that
him.
because he was old world
Yeah.
Hungarian Jew. But people now have so many problems. You go into anyone's medicine cabinet and there's a whole bunch of stuff for their digest. I need probiotic yogurts in the fridge. The Tums are in the This is coming from somewhere.
Yeah,
We're doing something to ourselves. We should wake up to it.
There's a lot of it. I'll give you an example. One of them is that in order for us to store milk for longer periods of time in mildly refrigerated areas, we use pasteurization processes, right? In Mexico and sub-Saharan Africa, we use cups to catch the goat milk. That's it. That's the pasteurization process. You shake it and you get the dirt out of it and you drink it.
That's not pasteurization.
It's their version, but it's
I know.
same thing, different name. But But here, we not only did we do pasteurization, but then we do what we call UHT, ultra high temperature pasteurization, because that kills even more things so that there's less stuff to cause a problem. And what happens is it actually kills the enzymes that God put in the milk in the first place that allows you to digest it.
So when we're all lactose intolerant, that's why.
That's why you're lactose. Because when you go to Europe, as Simi was saying, if you go to Europe and you go, wow, when I'm in Switzerland, I can eat the cheese. When I'm in Italy, I can drink the milk. That's why, because they're not using UHT.
I'm ignorant on the subject, but my question literally was going to be, is pasteurization considered processed food, like as milk that's pasteurized?
Yeah, so I'm a certified raw vegan chef, and anything that is processed above a certain temperature is considered pasteurized and processed, right?
What is the temperature?
It would be around 110 and above. It's when it's heated, it's called processed or pasteurized.
Well, good. I think this is bizarre, but I have a lunch plan with Sid Croft of Sid and Marty Croft fame, Land of the Lost, and all that. Yeah. I think he's certified raw vegan, whatever. Should I stop at Taco Bell on the way in, or what can I expect?
That's
here?
a good plan B. I'm not too familiar with Sid Croft, but if he's creative and he knows how to mimic the flavors and the essence of real cooked food, then I think
What's the best I can hope for?
Is he cooking, or are you going to like RF?
He eats before he gets
He
here.
has a person.
Okay. Then you're safe. I think what you can hope for is creative, less quantity, high quality, nutritious food. That's what I'll give you.
Well, is he a raw vegan? Because that's really interesting. I mean, that's what
I hear.
We are not talking about stuff that's sautéed and grilled. We're talking about
uncooked.
Raw.
Yeah. Well, what is some of your best work in the raw? Uncooked world?
I love, there's a dish called kelp noodles. It's basically seaweed kind of cleaned up, but you can make that into noodles, but soaked in cashew dill sauce, and it's really good. Then I love smoothies because I'm also lazy a little bit. So blueberries, spinach, dates, my daily go-to, but I've done that for close to 13, 14 years now, so I completely love the lifestyle.
Did you notice a change when you did it?
Absolutely. Lots of energy, more than I normally have. Physical activity, recovery is faster. I don't wake up, kind of with a brain fog, very clear. And, I love my skin, as you can see. But
looks good.
Dedicated to that.
It is lovely.
We have to stop at a certain point because who knows what the rules are anymore. But yeah, you're hot. Yeah, so then a lot of this is technology about storing the stuff, right? I mean, because that's what a lot of it comes down to how do you store this stuff so that when the tsunami hits, you're ready.
Right. Well, and that was the breakthrough kind of for us is I'm a former hedge fund manager, commodity trader, and I came across the technology. It was actually introduced by folks from the World Food Program, went to check it out, and it was these giant 100 metric ton bags. So if you can imagine the size of two 40-foot containers stacked on top of two 40-foot containers. That size of a bag. That's a bag.
Wow.
That's a ginormous bag, as we'd say in South Georgia. That's ginormous. And it was a zipper halfway up. They drop it down. They put the bags of maize, soy, wheat, whatever in it, and then zip it up. And the insects and the pests that are still in there actually respire the remaining oxygen. Mm-hmm. And within about 5 days, it's oxygen free.
So it's like a compressed bag.
It's like a vacuum sealer.
Right.
It's a self-sealing vacuum, right?
Oh my God.
And so I went to see some of these that had been in this storage bag for 15 years. And they pulled out corn, maize, as they call it. Mm-hmm. They pulled out maize, and it had color, it had texture. You could dimple it. You could literally grind it into grade A flour, and it had been there for more than 15 years. That was for me, being a greedy capitalist pig. I said I could move to Iowa and just buy everything at harvest and sell it during the middle of winter and make a fortune. And so the pivot is you can literally now treat food as an asset class. If you can hold food without calendar risk, you could hold it for decades, you solve a huge number of problems. So that's a really big catalyst for what we do.
Yeah, so you could have a bad crop year, but you wouldn't be devastated by it because you have a supply that lasts. Brian, you were going to ask?
The question, I don't know insects very well. They take in the oxygen, which is great. Do they exhale CO2 like we do?
They do, yeah.
Does it mess up the food?
They don't. We just call it extra protein. We don't charge for it. It's
good.
It's free.
Yeah.
No, it's just added bonus.
Well, what about that? I mean, Angelina Jolie's been talking about this. A lot of people somebody tweeted me, I like to do rich man, poor man stuff rich people and poor people only do. And somebody wrote, eat bugs. Because you're either celebrity, Hollywood elite, or you are eating bugs. You know?
Right.
Crickets, worms, things like that.
But is that, and they say, this is the answer.
This is the new protein.
It's right.
Yeah, I'm not, there is no data that shows that someone is sick or nutrition deficient because of protein deficiency, right? Maybe in Africa because of malnutrition. But I don't think protein should be put on a pedestal. There are other nutrients we should be focusing on, which is vitamin C, vitamin D, and real requirements. And I'm obviously raw vegan, so I'm kind of biased, but I think crickets and all these things, they're on the U.S. market. We'll sell them in chips, we sell them in things. I think, in my strong opinion, it's a fad. But if there is data, again, real data, not Adam's observation data.
That's really mean. That's a real
It's really hurtful, actually.
But there's real data that shows this improves a child or someone's protein content, then it's something to support. But if this is just a fad, then I disagree.
Well, there's 5 countries in sub-Saharan Africa that eat either crickets, locusts, or mealworms and grubs as a normal part of their diet. But the question is, do they eat it because they did double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that showed that it had high protein, and they're on a high-protein diet to build mass? Or did they do it because that's what was available to eat in northern Mali?
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about logistics in terms of bringing food to countries where, let's say, the government isn't super happy you're there, or the food doesn't get to where it's supposed to go. Do you have to deal with those sort of logistics?
Logistics is probably the single biggest issue we have, yeah.
And how does that work when the government, you're not welcome there, and either they don't want it, or they'll take it and do whatever with it?
That's a really, really good question. The part of what we do is, rather than I'll give you an example. And my mother used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. So I won't mention.
Oh, don't be Southern now.
I won't mention Ethiopia and Uganda and Congo, and so we just won't even use those names. But in places like Ethiopia, where we were sending, for example, $400 million worth of food, the cost of shipping that food was 62% of the total cost. And we were buying the food at a discount in Belgium and Italy because they subsidize it. So now you're subsidizing it so that they can then send it to a country that now has too much that cannot be bought locally because they can't sell it as cheaply as you can buy it subsidized in Belgium and Italy. If we had taken that 62 cents of logistics and used it to pay a premium price, we could have bought the products and manufactured them in Ethiopia. So our goal is to build that ecosystem. So World Food Bank comes in and helps to get farmers to grow the quality that meets those global standards, and then we store it in that region, so they don't actually have to import it most of the time. It's actually manufactured in the region. So it doesn't work all the time.
And it lifts so many boats when it's done there, I imagine.
Exactly. You're solving the problem with farmers having a market to sell. You're having, when prices go up because of locust or drought or whatever, you can sell it back into the market, so you're solving that side. And then when it's needed for what they call internally displaced people or refugees, it's more immediately available.
I'm sure you thought of this, but this has a military application, obviously. I mean, like if we deploy troops to anywhere, Ethiopia, if you guys have a whatever set up there, then you've got a food supply for any number of personnel.
I think it's not just troops, right? I think what we also do is we educate small farmers on how to farm so they can kind of become these community influencers to, one, create economic empowerment, also teach other farmers to raise crops and to also kind of diversify, so it kind of becomes this waterfall ripple effect.
And refugees too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and so they're sustainable. So they don't need the outside countries to go in with troops to serve them. We are actually empowering them, just enabling the system, right? So I think that's so great.
They go from subsistence to for profit, right? Most of them are making the food for themselves, but now they're making it for their neighbors.
We talk about this on the show. Adam talks about this a lot on the show, and just on that level, the overall culture has to shift. I mean, like you said, the mindset of the people who are empowering themselves as opposed to waiting for somebody to rescue them has to be really, really impactful. It's a wonderful thing.
Oh, it's huge. I'll give you an example. We had a 5,000 acre farm in Uganda. We were training about 9,000 people a year, and about 27% would adopt the practices that we taught. So they had some white guy from Cornell University come in to tell them about, how to grow maize. But then I was appointed to the board of USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, has an advisory board called BIFAD, and they sponsor 3,500 projects in any given year, and they gave an award to a media company in Kenya, and this media company had like the home makeover shows we have, they have farm makeover shows. And the farm
Smart.
makeover
I wonder
show.
what happened to Ty Pennington.
That's right.
I know. It was
You
the
guys, the
it's
king of Uganda.
Move that tractor.
That's right.
Big Daddy.
That's right. Yeah, move that trash bag. And so it was kind of like that. But they go out and ask him what the problem are. You know, my cow's not doing so well, and he's so skinny. And they say, well, we pull in the hair of the cow, and it comes out. That's not so good. It's a sign he has worms. So we're going to bring in an expert to tell you how to get rid of worms. And at the end of the show, she's got big fat cows, and they do 5 liters a day. And when people watch that, they actually adopt those practices more readily than us doing it live.
Of course.
So we now reach 12 million people a week across 3 countries.
I like the
that way.
technology and the innovation. I'm so impressed. I kind of hate big government and bungling bureaucracies and nations and things like that. I love it when people start off as a Wall Street whatever or robotics expert or something, and then they take their skills and they move it to some other platform, and then they start kicking ass. I mean, every time SpaceX launches something, as they did the other day, I go, that's what I want. I want that. I don't want big, fat, bloated everything all the time. And you must have to, you deal with that worldwide. It's not just obviously in this country. I will ask you to go against your mom's teachings. Who are some of who's the most corrupt these days?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Or is it too many to list?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Let me use a small story to kind of go sideways on that. When I travel to foreign markets, I just got back from Africa, and I am constantly amazed at the bureaucracy. And then I fly back through Washington, D.C., and I have a few meetings, and I go, that's where they learned.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's where they learned it. We taught all those leaders how to operate.
Oh boy.
So I would say it's a disease that transfers just like any other disease. In 90 days, what's taught in one country spreads to another. But it's by design. The ecosystem is designed to create bureaucracies, and we fund that bureaucracy and we support it. So until there's transparency is required, the golden rule, we're going to write you a check, but we want transparency of where every dollar goes. Blockchain and other technologies are probably going to enable that, but you actually have to get the governments and the World Bank and others to participate. That'll start cleaning things up. But in the meantime, they're all competing to see who can be the worst, kind of like your earlier discussions on New Orleans, right? I was a paramedic 30 years ago.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, and we were always competing in Savannah, Georgia to outbeat New Orleans. and what was the other in... was it St. Paul? No, in St. Paul.
Chicago?
It was Chicago or somewhere
St.
in
Louis?
Who was
St.
going for
Louis.
the murder
St. Louis
capital?
was-
St. Louis.
For
St.
years,
St. Louis
was
quietly murder capital.
They were. They just keep to themselves and kill one another, and they're not really showy about it, but they stick to business. And we were always trying to beat that in Savannah, but they had a problem with too much marijuana. People move slower. They don't kill as quickly.
Oh, that's what it is. Like the sleaze tax, to bring it down back to Sid Croft.
Last question then is, as long as you brought it up, what happened to hemp? I mean, I remember, so I grew up out here. Mom was a hippie. It's talking about like legalizing marijuana my entire life. And then the second part of my life was trans rights. So those will be my 2 major subjects. I don't really participate in either one, but those will be what use the lion's share of my conversations living in Los Angeles. A lot of talk about hemp. The founding fathers used hemp.
Every shoe, every belt
Yes,
is going to be hemp.
and we can use it, make stronger rope. And the Declaration of Independence was penned on hemp paper. And Benjamin Franklin was a hemp farmer, and you could grow this much, pulp for paper, whatever. Cotton. It was like, but hemp. If they would only legalize it, that's the future. What's going on with hemp?
Well, there's a difference in hemp for food and hemp for construction and all that. Why don't you talk about it for food?
I think there are a lot of things that floats around which are just buzzwords. And I think hemp is one of that.
You hate hemp and crickets. That's what I got.
The hate is a strong word, but hemp has benefits nutritionally, but I think when it comes to products and sustainability, I think there's good intent. But I think it's on the buzzword. I haven't heard hemp in a very long time. I've heard CBD now. I've heard ketamine. I've heard everything else. Hemp
Mushrooms.
I haven't heard mushrooms.
But in terms of crops that could be grown abroad and that needed less water or less tending to, I mean, obviously you have to think about what uses the least amount of resources and is the most abundant.
Well, hemp doesn't necessarily use a whole lot less water.
Yeah,
so
everyone just fucking lied. They wanted to smoke pot, so they were lecturing me
it
on
does
hemp.
less than things
Be
like
Real
sugarcane.
wasn't
Yeah, Be Real. My mom.
Wasn't as real. Well, everything looks good in comparison to some, if you set the right thing next to it, right? But hemp does offer a lot of great opportunity for construction and for a lot of other things, but it may be, as a former trader, I would be on the short side of some of that stuff. I think some of it's been overhyped and some of the valuations are a little higher. And a lot of people think that I lived in Costa Rica for a few years, and we used to tease that you could stick laminate in the ground and grow a tree. And people kind of think that about hemp, but that's just not true. People growing hemp have problems too. It has diseases and pests and everything like everything else. So you got to know.
Sold you a bill of
reason
goods.
to be angry about my childhood. All right, let me hit a quick spot here. Concrete. Your body makes about half the creatine it needs. The other half comes from your diet, but most American diets are low in creatine-rich food, and that's where Concrete comes in. Patent creatine, HCl, is the favorite creatine of elite, well-informed athletes. The number one bioavailable creatine and the only microdosing creatine, just one small scoop per 100 pounds of your body weight. Shake it up with some water. It's got a nice little lemony flavor to it. You feel the energy immediately. Dr. Drew loves this stuff. I love it as well. Creatine is required for functional energy in every cell, and your brain uses about 20% of the creatine in your body. So it's important. Your immune cells need it. Your heart cells need it, and your lung cells need it as well. It is Concrete. Am I right, Dawson?
Take control of your health, both body and mind, to build a better you with Concrete. Register now at con-crete.com/podcast. That's con-cret.com/podcast for a chance to win a $500 Walmart Visa gift card, available now online and in-store at Walmart. Concrete is truly life-changing and performance-enhancing.
All right. Let me give a plug out for Richard and Smriti. Smriti met Mena. I feel like I'd like to just go Smriti. Mena Suvari. Just because I feel like saying that. Mena Suvari is going to join us in a minute. World Food Bank is where you go and you can visit to donate or find out any information you need for folks that are literally doing the Lord's work. worldfoodbank.org. And a podcast, the HLTH Health Forward podcast, wherever you find finer podcasts. Thanks for joining us, you guys.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Very interesting. Mena Suvari will join us right after this.
It's time for Nicaraguan Name That Movie with Adam's buddy Oswaldo. See if you can guess which movie this famous line is from.
The power of Christ complete you. The power of Christ complete you.
If you said The Exorcist,
the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
You're correct. Now, back to the show.
Mena Suvari is with us via Zoom. The Accursed is the name of the movie. It'll be in theaters and on demand October 14th. Very scary horror film. And we'll talk about that in a second. American Beauty, of course, American Pie, which I forgot about because I thought I was just saying American Beauty and doing it. But American Pie, Slums of Beverly Hills. So
Love that movie.
So many movies. Good to see you, Mena.
Thank you for having me.
So your life, as I was reading about you, is kind of interesting. You start off as a model, a preteen model?
I was born in Rhode Island. I actually did my first commercial. It was a regional commercial when I was about 7. And then I did a little bit of child modeling. We moved a few times. So we ended up, I was in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I had middle school. And that's where I started modeling again. And then that led me into acting.
And you were kind of discovered in junior high, I guess it would be?
So in middle school, just for fun, I took like a basic modeling class that kind of led to joining the modeling agency and then attending a modeling convention that then I met all of the top agencies. Wilhelmina signed me, but in their kids division, it was called Wee Willies. And I went to New York for that summer. I was 13. And then the next summer they had me come out here to Los Angeles because they had a commercial division. I didn't quite get to the height that they were hoping. I only grew like 2 inches. So
The literal height.
Yeah.
They were like, considering her personality and everything, why don't you try LA? And yeah, in a nutshell. And then I came out here just for the summer, and I booked a Rice-A-Roni commercial, which gave me my SAG card. And then, after some conversation, we decided to move out here. So I had a couple months of my freshman year in Charleston, and then I came out here to Los Angeles.
Well, here's an observation that you can weigh in on, being good looking from Jump Street. So many people, I realize, kind of grow into their looks. Like, I was watching the J-Lo doc last night. I was just sitting home watching. I love a documentary on any subject. I'm not a huge J-Lo fan, but they're all good because they all just tell this story, And, Jennifer Lopez, arguably one of the best looking 53-year-old women on the planet. And when you see pictures of her when she was 14, you would never, like, you just go, no way that person became this person. And how did she become? And everyone knows, the bad hairstyle of the 80s or whatever. I'm just talking about, when you look at her and the early family photos, never in a million years would you go, you're going to be a star.
She's got star
you
quality.
got it, or Puff Daddy's going to try to date you or whatever. Or Ben Affleck, you would have no. So I feel like women especially, some of them just grow into it or create it or cultivate it or find it or something. And then there's others that are just, I was hot when I was 12, which could be you. I'm assuming since you were discovered. I don't even know if there's a question in here.
There's really not.
There really isn't.
Defend what Adam's saying.
Yes, make me right.
I don't really know. I mean, when I think of J-Lo, I think of like exceptional genetics and, she's super fit. Me, I can't dance for the life of me, so I don't know.
But
I hope to be J-Lo.
Gina, you're looking at, we looking at J-Lo in the 6th grade or 4th grade or something?
Like just a little girl. You kind of not memorable in the, like, she should be in Toddlers and Tiaras.
Nobody
would
show up at her junior high class and pull her out and explain she needed to be a model and do Rice-A-Roni commercials.
And by the way, I am uniquely qualified to say that because I was ugly. So I'm just saying, like, as somebody who I think can answer this question, nothing to write home about in the picture I'm looking at with J-Lo.
Yeah, but it worked.
Yeah.
She's got that ethic.
Can I pivot back to Mena?
Yes,
sure.
Go ahead. We'll get back to J-Lo, though, immediately.
I'm sure you get, when you're recognized in public, a lot of, American Beauty is amazing, or American Pie is my favorite. My favorite is by far and away Sugar and Spice. Amazing movie, hilarious movie, darkly comic, also smartly comedic. Can you talk about making that movie and what that was like? And the reception was not what it should have been.
Yeah, that's always, left up to so many other things. I recently wrote about my life, and so I specifically talked about like a little bit more personally where I was at during that project, which was pretty heavy, but it was really wonderful for me because other than American Pie, this was like another ensemble that I was going into. We had a female director, having this female cast. It felt like a bit ahead of its time, then.
Definitely.
And I loved, not that I want to like allude to too much choice in the matter, but if my memory serves me well, it felt like I was able to, I guess choose Kansas in a way. It felt like I needed that at the time, which when I talk about where I was at in my personal life.
Character for people.
Yeah, Kansas was, and I talk about the two, how there's always like this magical symmetry between like what comes to me professionally and like where I'm at personally. And so Kansas really gave me the opportunity then to, be loud and express myself and be blunt.
Yes.
And
you were bank robbers, right? Did I get that
was
right?
a cheerleading movie.
Based on a true story. It was
Right.
originally called Sugar and Spice and Semi-Automatics, and it was based on a story that took place, I believe, in Texas.
Many say a precursor to J-Lo's Hustlers.
Oh, is that true?
Oh,
Yes,
I never thought about it that
well,
way.
let me talk about that for a minute.
I'm sure he looks amazing in it.
There's a line from Sugar and Spice. I'm sure everybody quotes it, but even to my husband, just as a joke, I'll go, "That's the Apple fucking dumpling gang."
Yeah, the goody two shoes.
Yes.
Was watching robbery movies.
It's so great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, at that time. I mean, again, this was like late 90s. Everything was very different. We shot on film.
Wow.
Yeah. I know.
Speaking of the late 90s, forgive my ignorance if you've talked about this, but you were a young, good-looking actress when that was maybe a dangerous thing in some ways. We know about certain things in the industry, but how did you avoid that, or did you?
Honestly, I don't think we really escaped that. I still think that we need to have that conversation. A lot of it's really happening. I think it's just maybe come to the surface a bit more, but it's still pretty, prevalent. I think it's a lot about, how we're going to, influence, change our perspectives.
No.
It's really how I see it. I don't think any of those things have really changed. I mean, for me now, playing a mother to, I've recently worked on projects, where my child is, maybe 18 and seeing the younger generation coming into this, it doesn't mean that they're not suffering from that as well. I just think that we're able to talk about it and sort of, I think, direct ourselves onto a different path, a different approach.
Gina.
I'm truly not asking about anything specific. I'm just wondering overall. I mean, you've worked with casts that are like mostly kids or your age, like Sugar and Spice or American Pie, and everyone's kind of around the same age. But American Beauty, it was kind of you and Thora Birch and the adults. And I'm wondering, especially with the kind of scenes and the kind of vulnerability you have to have, did you feel sort of overall protected as you were acting? I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that experience because you had to do very vulnerable things.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I go really, really into depth. I wrote a book called The Great Peace about that and that whole process because I think many people had assumptions on what that was like for me then.
Sure.
My life was anything but. It was the complete antithesis to anything that looked fabulous. It was very dark and very abusive and very traumatizing. So having the opportunity to work on American Beauty in and of itself, and I think overall art saved my life. That gave me the opportunity to get out of the situation I was in. And I definitely felt that. I was unique in the sense that I think I can safely say this, Thora has been working since she was 4. I mean, she had much more experience than I did. I didn't have a sense of what that dynamic was like. All I really knew was how to do my job. That's what I focused on. That's what sort of saved me. I knew that I could put something into Angela, and I knew that everybody was just so wonderful to work with. I knew of their names, but I wasn't caught up in that. I didn't have the sense of fame or this. I didn't read this and think this is going to win awards. I had no sense of that. I just knew that I knew I had a sense of what it might take for me to do what I needed to do. And I was so grateful to have a job. It literally ended there. But everybody was so wonderful to me. But the downside is that it, and this is what I wrote about, it took me a long time for me to open up and enjoy that. I felt very separate in my life at the time. So I couldn't take advantage of those opportunities with Thora or with Wes. I was very closed off and very detached. And even with American Pie, which I'd worked on right before that, I always kind of said it gave me my high school experience. I turned it on whenever I went there, but I missed out on the real connection with a lot of them then because my life was such.
What was going on?
That's the honest answer.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
What was going on at the time that was dark in your life?
I think what I tried to encapsulate in the book is just, it's a progression, it's like a chipping away. I think that, experience with the industry, not having the right support around me, it led me into really dark situations, really dark relationships. And that's what I was in. And I truly believe that if I didn't have my work, if I didn't have the opportunity to get out of that, I don't know where I really would have ended, because it gave me such a difference to get out and express myself in the ways that I needed to. And I really put a lot of that into every character. I've always done that, but my work has always given me at the same time a greater understanding of myself and how I can change and grow. So
you didn't have a high school experience because you left to model and travel and act.
I went to 2 different high schools. I was made fun of because I moved here from South Carolina. So I was the hick. I was ahead when I came out here. So I was a freshman taking sophomore classes. I was an actor. None of it was working out for me.
Where did you go to?
I think maybe where you were trying to get to with maybe an ugly duckling kind of story, none of that worked out for me. And so it was a lot of struggle and really, really challenging. And the thing that I knew how to do best was my work. And so that's what I did. I just put everything into that.
Did you go to high school in Los Angeles?
I did. I went 2 years to Notre Dame, and then I graduated from Providence in Burbank. Good old private Catholic.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Notre Dame up the street, or, 2 miles from where I grew up in North Hollywood. And I always knew a couple of guys. I went to North Hollywood High or Walter Reed Junior High, but Notre Dame was always an all-boys school for its entire existence. Yeah. And then at some point, it just became co-ed.
Harvard Westlake did the same thing.
I remember I met a girl once, and we were dating or whatever, and I said, where'd you go to high school? And she went, Notre Dame. And I went, you got a good sense of humor. I like that about you, because you picked the all-boys school.
I graduated in 97, so I don't know. It probably had been like that.
I'd probably switched in the 80s at some point, more money for them. And, better cheerleading squad, I'm guessing, as well. Well, let's talk about the Accursed. Sorry, it's a word I've never... Is the Accursed a thing?
Is that a word? I don't know.
Is that made up for this movie, or am I?
You're accursed. Accursed is it's
like being cursed.
Medieval kind of thing.
I never heard of the Accursed.
Under a curse, you're accursed.
Well, that makes sense.
It's a very old word, Adam.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not hip, but
it says literary there. You're out.
I'm still trying to figure out Latinx, Latinx.
Right.
I'm mired in today's terminology.
Well, in the movie, Mena dares us to find her unattractive, and it doesn't work.
It's not working.
She with the bun and the very matronly garb, and it's still the beautiful Mena Suvari.
You're so nice, though. I love that, though. That's fun. That's what I enjoy, and that's when these things really come to life. Sorry, it sounds like they're picking up the trash.
All right.
It's LA. We're used to it.
You are. Let me tell you something. I don't know what neighborhood you're in, but you are blessed, because I have never ever lived in a neighborhood where the trash came after noon. It's always 7:15. Beep, 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 backing up and down. I used to live under the Hollywood sign, and I would hear all morning, and I'd finish Loveline at midnight. I'd go to bed at 2 a.m. and it's 6:15 every Friday. Me, backing up.
You'll remember this, Adam. When I was in high school, we used to go up to the Hollywood sign. There was none of these fences and rails, and everything was just open. You'd go up there at night and hang out. It was a lot of fun.
You could go, there were places like you could go to the reservoir, you could go to the Hollywood sign, you could hike the trail and get up to the Hollywood sign and go. There was I think a fire station or something up there, or an old fire station with an old swimming pool and stuff. You could walk. There wasn't fences around capitals or reservoirs or Hollywood signs. And you guys aren't old enough, but I remember the Hollywood sign completely falling apart. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was dilapidated.
It was in disrepair.
It read so. All right. Well, it has to do with Hollywood. The old lady, I bought a house up there in Hollywood Land. Hollywood Land.
That's what they used to say.
Yeah, the Hollywood sign said Hollywood Land. It could have said Kaufman and Broad. It's like they were trying to develop a place for Hollywood people to live. They had 2 big pillars where they were going to have a gate. They were going to have buses live in this community. My old house is in the old books. It was like the 3rd house built up there in 1923, and the 90-year-old woman I bought it from, or used to live like. Talk about a horror movie. She came over in like 1998
with a lantern
and like stood in this room that was my office where you could clear.
I haven't had electricity since 1864.
This house
Said
burned
the
down 50
Hollywood
years
sign
ago.
said Hollywood land, and there was 10,000 light bulbs in it.
Oh, boy.
It
Fire
was
hazard.
heated up. They lit it.
That'd be gorgeous.
And then the land part fell off and everything. And everyone's like, we don't want this. And then I think Hugh Hefner, amongst others, maybe in the 80s or the late 70s, went, let's pass the hat, get some money together, and put the Hollywood sign back
Wasn't his
together.
whole thing that he sponsored the Y because it kind of looked like bunny ears?
Or other things, depending on what position you're in.
The two O's.
Yeah. I don't even remember that part. I just remember living under that sign. It was kind of bizarre in a
Like
weird way.
actually living under it. You were like actually under the H.
I didn't even hear these stories about
Seeking shelter.
the actress that killed herself by jumping off of that. Can that be true?
It is, yeah.
But it's
I
like,
think we should all go up there at night and we'll wait for her.
That's a good idea.
did you have? So you had a high school life, but it just wasn't exactly typical.
I had a life that occurred while I was in high school. Yeah. Because like a high school, I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to like any of these things. Yeah. I feel like that's a high school life.
Yeah.
Was there not?
I wanted to get out. I was like, how do I get out of here as fast as possible?
Yeah, I didn't know because it was a private school and kind of a religious school, Notre Dame, like a Catholic school. I didn't know if the kids would be nicer or crueler.
More drugs.
The same, just in uniforms.
I know. I'm like, are they ever? Yeah.
What were your parents like through all of this? I mean, they moved here, I imagine, with you, and probably spearheaded some of this stuff. What was that relationship like?
It quickly fell apart after a couple of years. My parents ended up separating, and so I was sort of on my own by 16.
Wow.
And Engineer Dawson has a thought about the film.
Yeah, hi Mena. I love horror movies. I love to be scared, so this was right up my alley, and I sat down and watched it. One thing I noticed at first, and I thought it was a clever way the director was saying that this could all be easily solved if not for a cell phone. Because, like right at the beginning of the movie, it's made clear that the lead character loses her cell phone all the time. And I went, oh, okay, great. This is going to be easily solved by having a cell phone. No, it wasn't. Thank you. This was a totally new, innovative. It's incredibly difficult to make new horror.
Yeah,
this was great.
I mean, Kevin really, this was kind of like his ode to the 70s. His love for the horror of the 70s, and and I feel that throughout this. It's very much a drama as well.
Yeah,
psychological drama, and I feel like just with that example, I mean, it's very understandable. Someone in this headspace and not so much caring about that.
Sure.
I actually know people that just recently only had a landline. So, it is still kind of possible, I think, depending on.
Absolutely. But then again, in the end, what I'm saying is it didn't have, I expected that to be coming to
a plot contrivance.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Brian. But let's talk about the sound of the film, because sound to movies is so damn important. And whoever did this sound design really took advantage of the scythe noises or the nice low frequency rumble crossfades. I mean, there's one scene where there's just a cacophony of noise and it drains out into a train whistle that keeps going through the entire next scene, and you're just like, please stop with the train. And then silence. And nobody really understands how silence can be the most important sound in a movie.
Dawson, you get into Brian's riddling, or I've never seen you more focused in your entire life.
Thank you. That's a
really
wonderful
enjoyed
composer, Benoit. He's really, really incredible, and he and Kevin really put a lot into this. I don't really want to speak for them, but just being privy to their conversations, I know that Benoit talked a lot about finding and using instruments that didn't even have a specific name. Just made all these really wild and unique sounds.
Well, that's another thing. This was not those cliche sounds. Sure, we use the low end rumble. Sure, there's the scythe noises, but there is a lot of sounds that I cannot identify. They were new in any horror film, and
yeah, I know that they'll really appreciate it. And I know that also they spoke about for himself and Juan not really having what is it, like a foundation to, or a template or a guideline. Like, it's not like they had to mirror it off of something else. And I think that that's what they really enjoyed and had a lot of fun with, was just experimenting and really making it their own.
Well, they did great, and you were awesome. Thank you.
The Accursed.
And then silence.
The
I just
Accursed.
want to listen to your voice all day, Dawson. Jeez.
It is dulcet.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to look at him for sure, but you definitely want to hear what he has to say. I get where you're coming from. The Accursed, he was not pulled out of junior high to model. In theaters and on demand, coming up October 14th. Mena, thank you so much for joining us. And anytime you got a project coming out, you want to give it a plug, you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our
Enjoy your
pleasure.
day. Take care, guys.
Take
Bye.
care, Mena. All right, let me tell you about BetterHelp, a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Training your brain to stay in a problem-solving mode when faced with a challenge is, well, it can be tough. A therapist can help you become a better problem solver. That's right. Get your head right, and the rest will follow. BetterHelp, convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched with one of 25,000 therapists after filling out a brief survey, and switch therapists anytime you like as well. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/Carolla. Do it today. Get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/Carolla. Better, HELP.com/Carolla. And get yourself some therapy and get on with a better life at BetterHelp. All right, quick break. Back with the news right after this. Let me tell you a latent observation about Top Gun, the movie that set the box office on fire.
Aflame.
Yeah. Which I enjoyed. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I got no problems with it.
I won't tolerate any critiques of the new Top Gun.
I love it. Fine. Good. Lots of good stuff. But the initial premise is this guy's a hot shot, and he's a relic, but the best, fighter, pilot, whatever. And then the and he's a maverick. That's his nickname.
Literally.
He does his own thing. The opening thing, they're doing the test plane, the experimental test plane, and they can get it to Mach 10 times the speed of sound. Then they'll get their funding and they'll move forward and whatever. And of course, the general's showing up to shut it down, but he's suited up and takes off just to fly by the SUV. Blah blah blah. At some point with the general and everyone watching, he gets to Mach 10 and everyone goes bananas because you had to get to Mach 10 in order to keep the program going. But he doesn't lift the throttle.
Okay.
He says, we're going past Mach 10.
Yeah, then that was a violation of some sort.
And we shall just keep going until the plane is destroyed.
It's a bit of a death wish.
Not what I'm looking for in a test pilot. It was clearly laid out. You get to Mach 10, and you fucking throttle back.
Check that box.
This thing is $200 billion worth of taxpayer money. We'd like it brought back in one piece. And whether it's an aircraft or a supercar, if you never lift, I mean, you just go, I'm going full throttle. At some point, the plane will come apart.
Yeah.
Where did he want to go with this other than pass? Oh, and by the way, once you got to Mach 10, you're getting your dick sucked when you get back to the hangar. You know, one goes, Mach 10, not Mach 10.3, point 2, not point, Mach 10, not Mach 10.287. Just flat out, just boring old Mach 10.
Round number.
Just boring old 6,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's it?
Anyway,
you didn't get to 11?
Where's my purse?
You see
I gotta
Spinal
go.
Tap? This one goes to 11. Like, he's a test pilot. He just I got to Mach 10. You guys can celebrate, but I'm just going to keep this throttle jammed until the airframe comes apart.
Yeah.
What was the plan?
Thanks, Mav. Now we got to build another goddamn
But you
prototype.
sound like
the whole thing is scrapped now, and you're out of a job. But
you kind of sound like, I mean, did you even see the original Top Gun? That's his thing. He's dangerous. He's crazy. All the bigwigs hate him because he does this shit. He ruins planes.
I get the fact that he is, engaging with the MiG when he's told not to engage with the MiG, or doing his own Cobra move and have the guy fly past him.
But when there's no danger.
Or the ceiling for the dogfight is 3,000 feet, and you want below the ceiling, and you want into that's Maverick shit. This is you just destroying property.
It's all risk and no reward.
Yeah.
It's all risk and no reward. Going past, the limit or whatever.
He's addicted to speed. He feels the need.
There's nothing to gain from this.
The question was, can you get to Mach 10, which is, 6,500 miles an hour, whatever it is at altitude? And yes, you did.
Yeah, now what?
Kindly return the plane.
Should we just, it's like saying, I built an engine, and it's such a hot rod engine that, but I think Redline would be 8,000 RPM, and you go, well, let me test it out by just never removing my foot from the accelerator until parts start flying out the side of it.
Know.
It's like, no, once you get to 8,000, shift or back off.
Yeah.
But he just goes, no, I'm just gonna keep going, and
Nothing to gain.
we as a movie watcher go, yeah, I like that guy,
Yeah.
but do you like that guy?
No.
He fucked all those people out of their jobs. The whole program just got shut down.
Yeah.
And he destroyed a multi-kajillion-dollar aircraft.
Yeah.
And we'll never know what it could have done. He could have got to 10. He could have throttled back. He could have put his flaps down. He could have fucking landed it and had a Budweiser with the team. And then we would have got another $200 billion from the taxpayers to keep the experiment going. But he blew it up.
Yeah.
Finally, he gets his.
Look, it's a great movie. I don't like when movies start with a weird premise.
Yeah.
Should have just stopped at 10. You got to 10.
There's any number of ways to show that he is, in fact, a maverick. This one felt a bit forced.
Yeah, wouldn't you like to turn it around and give everyone an I told you so?
He didn't even do the flyby on the way back before you land. He didn't do a thing where, like, this thing's capable of 10.5 and I know it. It wasn't any of that. It was just, I'm going.
Yeah.
We got to 10. I shall not stop until the plane blows up. And I die or land in some diner in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a great line, though. Where am I? Earth?
Yeah. No, it's totally fun. But what was he doing?
He's being a maverick.
And is that what you want out of your test pilot?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
It's the risk in the character.
That's right. All right. Let's talk some news. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones is nowhere to be found. He has fled the state of Connecticut on Wednesday without taking the stand in his defamation trial, claiming he is boycotting the justice system. Jones, who's already on the hook for more than $4 million after losing one case brought by parents of a child murdered in Sandy Hook, was in the middle of another case that could have cost him millions. Jones admitted under oath that he'd been wrong when saying the school shooting was a hoax, then fled on his private jet instead of taking the stand again. This is what his attorney said. I tried to Google it. I don't understand it. This is going to be a Mark question. They say he is in the horns of a trilemma. Here's the trilemma. And I can't really define it for you. If he testifies under the court's orders, he'll be committing perjury. If he violates the court orders, it's criminal contempt. If he takes the fifth, he gets an adverse inference. And I did not understand what an adverse inference was.
We don't know where he fled to.
Not sure. The judge said in the trial she's not having any of that and said the jury will begin deliberations as planned.
Well, every parent of Sandy Hook times, I don't know, 9 kids, 13 kids, however, they're all potentially now in line,
Getting
right?
in line, right.
There's precedent.
Right.
Trilemma,
exactly
I did not know was a word. Was that the fraternity?
Trilemma.
Was that the frat in the Revenge of the Nerds? The Trilams.
The Delta Trilams.
Also, when you've painted yourself into a legal corner with your own lies, it's kind of a you problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your choice is take the fifth, perjure yourself, or whatever the third one
Or hop a plane.
I said Weinstein should have popped the plane.
Finally, somebody listens to you.
He's got the range on that private jet of his. I mean, go back 5 years, but I was like, why isn't this guy hanging out with Roman Polanski somewhere? Like, I don't think you can. I don't think we have the extradition. I think we do have the extradition with France now. I don't know if Roman Polanski's like grandfathered in.
Protected
I'd be
somehow.
curious, Chris. Could Roman Polanski's in France, I believe. He fled there, and we've not, my feelings. Let's just go get him. Tell France, fuck off. And by the way, if there's a World War III, we're out this time. Have fucking fun with the Nazis or whoever you got to fight this time. So why don't you drop Roman off? But I believe that Mark said that you cannot flee to France anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I would say then we need Roman. And the reason I would say that is I'm going to use the same thinking that we have here in California. We had the death penalty, and Charles Manson got the death penalty. And then after he got the death penalty, a year later, we overturned it, and we didn't have it. I would argue he's in.
Yeah.
Now, if we don't have extradition with France, or we do have it with France now, you would argue that, or they would argue that Roman Polanski, and I would just go, I'm doing the same argument with the death penalty. It's flipped it over. Now give him.
Yeah,
give them to us.
This is the cashier at the grocery store. After this person, there's no more. So we need to say that with Charles Manson.
I got that.
Yeah, this line's closed after the gentleman in the blue shirt.
I got that at the Texas game, Alabama-Texas game 3.5 weeks ago. I got the beer line cut off.
Oh, were you part of it or no?
I was a very big part of it.
Oh.
It was devastating to all who were in the beer line.
That sucks.
And I knew she was doing a double cut. She was like, all right, this is it with the beer line. No more. And so I sidled up to a guy and I was like, hey, man.
Here's $20. Keep the change.
Yeah. Give me a couple of cold ones. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got you. And then she announced 2 minutes later, it stopped now.
Oh.
And that guy was devastated. I was as well.
Well, speaking of extradition, and I wasn't even going to get into this in the news because, I don't know, I was just tired. But, Edward Snowden is now under the very protective wing of Vladimir Putin because now he is an official Russian citizen.
Oh, right.
So that's fun. I'm just exhausted thinking about all that. I would love for you to get some insight on the Alex Jones stuff from Mark next time you see him.
Well, I don't know why he's going to a different state.
Well,
it seems like he would have to go to.
Maybe it's not a different state.
It seems like he'd have to go to a country that we didn't have a treaty with.
Cayman Islands or something.
What do we have with France?
I'm still reading about it. So I'll get back to you in a sec.
All right. Weinstein, if he could have gone to France, he should have gone.
Going to Caen.
That's right.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. And I still don't see where he went. So maybe that's not for public information right now. So the doctor who first diagnosed CTE, or just in general long-term concussion damage,
Will Smith.
Yep. In NFL players, says Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua. God, now I'm like you with the guess.
I can't say it.
It's a Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa. He needs to retire immediately.
Really?
That's what the doctor says. Dr. Bennett Omalu, who raised the first red flags about brain injuries in football, says that 2 consecutive weeks of hard hits, which led to a seizuring on the field, raised concerns. Omalu told TMZ that video indicates the 24-year-old player could already have severe long-term permanent brain damage, and said if you love your life, if you love your family, if you love your kids, if you have kids, it's time to gallantly walk away, go find something else to do. And he's listed as indefinitely out anyway right now.
You saw the first clip of his
not your favorite. I didn't even bother.
The wobbly knees.
Pretty
and then it was
innocuous.
Kind of stiffens up.
That was innocuous?
Not that. The hit. He just fell back on his back. It didn't take much.
You're right. But the first one was the wobbly knees. The second one was kind of a paralysis.
Yeah. That's what I think the seizing is.
He was, the first hit, first off, I think the guy was flagged on the first hit. Do we need to do that move where the quarterback throws the ball and you take 2 full steps and then just push him? The guy's got a brain injury now. Yeah. Thanks, dude. You know what I mean?
Not necessary.
The ball's gone.
Yeah,
you saw it. You're running. You took 2 full steps. You got flagged. He's concussed. God knows if it's ever going to be the same. Probably could have been avoided if you just ran past him, but you had to shove him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the notion that as many flags as they'll fucking throw with that, they still can't stop themselves. right in front of the referee. And by the way, you're not in traffic. You're exposed. You're out in the middle of the open. There's a ref standing right there, and he's watching you just push him. He fell on his back, and it's that thing where you hit your shoulder blades first, and then your head hits. But it wasn't violent. By the way, for all who are doing the I'm going to just punch a pedestrian thing, their head hits the fucking pavement, everyone. It's not the punch that gets them. It's the contact with terra firma.
Yeah.
The second one, he got swung around and thrown down and kind of whipped down. And it was kind of freakish because for all the sacks, you don't see those kind of where he got sort of whipped onto the ground.
That's my question, having had a sports announcer father my entire life and knowing nothing about football. I thought you weren't really supposed to touch the quarterback.
I mean,
you would always.
But isn't that
traditionally
a thing?
They would punish them?
That's what the old timers will say nowadays. Not allowed to touch the quarterback.
Right, that's what I
you
thought.
Can hit the quarterback. It just has to be in very specific, certain ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't touch the quarterback.
Well, it has to be while he's throwing the ball or doing something. The first hit, the guy took 2 steps. He threw the ball. Anyway.
There's no reason for it.
Yeah, and so he was concussed, and then there was protocol, and then it's kind of a perfect storm because then the next game was 4 days later, something, because they played on a Thursday night. Yeah, it was a short week, and then he said he had like a back spasm or something.
Well, the team, I think they said it wasn't a concussion; it was a back issue.
Oh boy!
Anyone watching the game, you couldn't stand up, couldn't walk.
Well, call me naive, but I thought the protocol was such that they would really check him out. And so if they said it was a back issue, I thought it was a back. I thought he had like a back spasm or something.
They did fire the independent third-party doctor, which makes you think, A, either they're covering their asses, or B, he was incompetent. Those are the only two answers, I think.
Well, let's talk a little bit.
Or maybe he had a fucking everyone in the NFL has a bad back. Maybe he had a bad back and he was concussed.
True.
Let's talk more football. I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, so let's make sure we talk about it. TMZ reports that the fan who was just leveled by Bobby Wagner after running onto the field during Monday Night Football, pressing charges, filed a police report.
Is Garagos representing him?
Yeah.
So look, he has pink smoke. The security guard can't catch him and just gets his ass knocked out, yakety sack style.
Yeah, he took out. I mean, Dick Butkus did that, right?
Oh, right. We've seen that. We've seen that clip.
Dick Butkus did it playing the Rams.
Oh,
I think
That's
here.
funny. Yeah, this is Rams and 49ers.
I think it was Dick Butkus who. Oh, Mike Ditka.
Oh
shit! Mike Ditka and Dick Butkus are really the same guy.
Same team.
Yeah.
Oh, they were the dudes.
Yeah.
Mike Ditka took out a fan in a Rams game, and it was the same thing too. The guy who gets the worst of it is the security guard, because as the security guard is catching him, that's when the flying forearm shiver comes in and takes both of them out.
And I'm going to talk about that too.
If we watch it, let's see. And the guy, there was another Rams outside backer who was chasing him. He
but
just
didn't
got there too late.
Yeah. You want to see it again?
Wait, yeah, let's see it. Let's see it again, and then we can see Ditka, I think, doing it. He's running on the field. He's got the pink smoke thing. I think it's that meat is murder thing or whatever.
Yeah, I'll say in a second. Ooh, that poor security guard. He's like the meat in the sandwich.
The Ditka forearm shiver took out the security guys too.
Yeah.
Collateral damage.
Jesus.
Yeah, so he's suing?
Yeah, while they're looking for
to.
that, a rep from Direct Action Everywhere, that's the organization that took credit for the scene, told TMZ the report stems from a blatant assault by 2 Rams players. And 2 protesters jumped the railing.
Oh, he's getting both of them.
One was a female. She got taken out early. And then this guy...
By security.
Yeah, by
this
security.
guy got to the second level.
Right.
That's right. One of the protesters, so she was taken out, the other one eventually taken down. Now, Bobby Wagner was the one that really subdued the guy. And when asked in a post-game interview what he thought of the police report, this is what he had to say.
I mean, I was where everybody kind of told me, but it is what it is. I don't really, it's behind me. Ain't really focused on it. I'm more concerned about the security guard that was hurt trying to chase him and the people that was, we don't know what that is, and you just got to do what you got to do.
Good.
Good.
And his coach said the same thing.
Well, the argument, I guess, is like the streaker doesn't, what he's packing.
Right.
But guy in pants, who the fuck knows if this guy's got a weapon or whatever.
With
I mean,
smoke.
he doesn't.
What's
And
the
smoke
smoke?
and everything. Yeah.
Was he the Joker?
It's easy. I was in my uniform.
I was going to do it anyway.
It was a football move. And I was in fear of my life. This guy came running at me with some toxic chemical spraying out of his hand. I don't know who the fuck this guy is.
Absolutely.
I reacted.
And the Direct Action Network's tagline is "Until every animal is free." So how
I see.
exactly does that relate? I don't know, but now we know the name, so maybe that's it.
We have the Ditka one. I think he took out the...
Oh, Jesus.
He really took the shit out of the security guard in that
I
one.
thought the security guard had it under control.
He took out the person on the field, but he fucking crushed. It's always the security guard that gets it the worst.
Yeah.
Security guard's like, I got him. No, you do not. There's a 240-pound man coming the other direction.
Yeah. Let me have a crack at him.
He wasn't known as a blocking tight end, but right there. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that was a big time hit. And it was funny because like Rosie Greer for the Rams was out on the field and he was the gentle giant. He was like, oh man, why'd you have to do that? Like Rosie liked needlepoint and stuff like that.
Sure.
That was his thing.
Wasn't he one of the Bounty Quicker Picker Upper spokespeople?
Rosie was
Some paper towel.
at the hotel when Robert Kennedy was shot. He was security. Like,
Oh.
he was.
I was like, what does this have to do with paper towels?
He was into needlepoint
I
and
love
stuff, and he's like an artist and everything. He was a giant man who was very evolved and against violence. Ditka was not against violence.
You don't
He was
say.
pro-violence, and
Yeah, because I think the whole thing was the quilting on the paper towel.
yes,
I
it
think
could
that's
be.
how
It's not jumping to my head. I'll buy you a second. Chris has the France Polinsky news.
Oh yeah, so sorry, there's a lot of information on it. Consistent with its extradition treaty with the U.S., France can refuse to extradite its own citizens, and an extradition request later filed by U.S. officials was denied. Polanski has never returned to England and later sold his home there because he originally fled to London and then went to Paris. So the U.S. could still request the arrest and extradition of Polanski from other countries should he visit them, but Polanski has avoided visiting any country that would likely extradite him. But 65 to 75% of citizens in France are like, yeah, get him out of here.
Yeah,
like,
good.
we want him extradited. And Polanski has been to both Switzerland and Poland, and the U.S. has gone and requested, but both were denied.
What do they want him for so bad?
So Swiss denied it because U.S. officials failed to produce a decent enough argument with enough not decent enough argument, but like the evidence. It wasn't clear enough. It was technical. It was like technicalities. And then Poland, the judge said that this is. I don't know. He had Polanski's back saying that it was like this is obviously he deserves liberty and freedom. Like it's just.
Here's what
it's
it's really
weird.
play. When do we ever go to Poland for anything? Hey, bro, we really need a solid.
Can you help me with these pierogies?
Maybe
There's a
spring
war's
water.
breaking out. We need your expertise. Like, we don't go to them for anything. So this is like the kid. It's got sort of like you're dragging your fucking sofa to the curb because you want to throw it out, and then some neighbor comes along and goes, hey, that's a nice sofa, you're throwing it away. As a matter of fact, I was just going to sell it, actually. I was going to have it reupholstered. Why? Are you interested? Not so fast.
Having it appraised.
Yes, Poland said no because we asked. And they went, how often do we get to tell America to fuck off?
Oh, almost never.
It's almost never. We usually have to ask them for shit. So let's tell them to suck their dicks.
Yeah, so
Fuck
Polanski
off.
now holds a dual citizenship with Poland and France.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, so the judge said, according to the judge, allowing Polanski to be returned to American law enforcement would be an, quote, obviously unlawful act, depriving the filmmaker of his freedom and civil liberty.
Wow.
Well, the question is could I go there and claim asylum? Now, they probably wouldn't like me, but what I'm saying is, Chris, look, do we still... Because Mark said we don't have that. You wouldn't be able to pull that off with France in these modern times.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything like the extradition on Congress's website. The extradition treaty was signed in '96, and I haven't seen anything updated since then.
So where would one go?
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, I was going to say I would do this off
I'll
the
be
mic.
like Googling where to flee.
Careful
Doesn't
with
really
Google.
give you the best results. Like,
Or we don't have extradition treaties with. Like, there's going to be, I don't know, some Cayman Island or Ghana or something. I mean, it's not. You're not going to be hanging out eating a baguette at the Eiffel Tower anymore. You got to go.
You're going to parts unknown.
It's wherever Weinstein is. I guarantee he'd rather be in that other place we didn't have the treaty with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I did send Ben at least one of the Rosie Greer bounty commercials. It was stuck in my memory, but I don't really remember.
Rosie was the. We used to have women who were like named Madge or Rosie or
Always
something,
Madge.
and they were the spokesperson for the whatever, the Maytag man.
Oh, this isn't even older. This is from 1970. Okay, let's see what this is. Somebody knocks over their drink.
Oh, you do that every time you take Helen out for a snack?
You're so beautiful, Rosie. You make me nervous.
If there isn't a spill a minute in this place, I get nervous. I used to use whatever was on sale, but I got so many guys like Harry coming in, I had to get Bounty.
Rosie
Get
Greer looks
filled up
different.
before they get you down. Bounty is the quick picker-upper.
Bounty? Come on, Rosie. You've seen one paper towel. You've seen them all.
Not so, dearie. Watch this. 2 glasses, same amount of juice,
Hey,
Bounty here.
Bitch,
my own
I
brand
ordered
here.
a BLT
And they
45
go.
minutes ago. Can we put the Bunsen burner back in the
Bounty
fucking
is
closet and give me
more
a
liquid
hamburger?
faster.
But is it strong, Rosie?
Oh boy, is this a 60?
Here, put it
I
on.
just want to go to lunch. Oh, put a
Bounty's
hot cup of
even
coffee
wet.
on a wet paper towel.
You sold me, Rosie.
Now don't forget, Bounty's the quick picker-upper.
So that's not the one.
Well, that's Rosie,
Right.
yeah, that's
no,
Nancy
Beach
Walker
out of
playing a
technicalities.
character, Rosie,
but not
and then-
Rosie Greer.
Yeah,
that's
here's-
not the one.
Here's Rosie.
Yeah, this is the one I
Ah,
said.
okay. Yeah, she was Rhoda's mom.
The ability to
It's
synthesize
the battle of the
information.
Rosies.
This Rosie's got the big towel.
This Rosie's got the quicker one. Bounty.
You don't stand a chance, Rosie.
I'm gonna wipe you out, Rosie.
And they're off.
Bounty's the quicker picker-upper. See? Better throw in the towel, Rosie.
I better change my towel, Rosie.
But not your name, Rosie. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Take Rosie.
Yeah, there you're right.
That's kind of, you could call me, right?
Hey, that's my line.
She was, Rhoda's mom
Oh.
in the sitcom that they spun off of Mary Tyler
Right.
Moore. Rhoda Morgenstern, and her mom.
Ida.
Rhoda and Ida.
Oy.
And do you remember the gag? You guys are all too young. Carlton the doorman?
No, sorry, buddy.
I think you got to look it up, Chris. Carlton the doorman was a big thing, and I think it was Rhoda. There was this running thing, sort of like, oh God, the Tim Allen show with the neighbor
Tool
who
Time.
you never
It's Home Improvement.
Home Improvement, and you never saw the
Right,
neighbor.
yeah.
They had Carlton the doorman, who ended up being the voice of Garfield the cat, I believe.
Okay.
Fun fact.
And he'd like someone would buzz. He'd like buzz up and go, "Hi, this is Carlton, your doorman." And she'd go like, "Yeah, I know Carlton. Is the guy here? Is my date here yet? This is Carlton." It was like a weird,
good stuff.
never pictured Carlton the doorman.
That guy had a long voiceover career.
I swear it was the guy who went on to do Garfield. And we'll hear it.
Yeah, Lorenzo Music.
God, that's a great name.
Hello, Carlton.
Goodbye. This is Carlton, your person.
Person. Carlton, please. I have police officers here. I have no time for games. What do you want?
Well, I just wanted to let you know that I'm no longer your doorman. I have been terminated.
What?
Don't apologize. I don't hold anything against you. I am too big a person to bear petty grudges. So I'd just like to leave you with one final thought.
It's good.
Was that Elliot Gould?
That was
Looked
not
like
a
him.
typical Carlton doorman one, but that was Carlton
idea.
your
You get the
doorman.
vibe.
That was who never saw him.
He hates Mondays.
Lorenzo also was co-creator of the
Loves
Bob
lasagna.
the Bob Newhart show. And I guess he was the voice of Garfield, right?
Yeah.
Him.
He voiced Peter Venkman in one of the Ghostbusters cartoons.
Yeah.
He worked for a
Weird
long time.
career. Is he still alive?
No, he died in 2001, age 64.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's just a funny guy with a funny voice, and somebody thought it'd be funny, and it was. It was always funny. But hi, Carlton. Hi, this is Carlton, your doorman, and everyone would laugh. All right.
That's good.
Let's bring it home, Gina Grad.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news. I'm not going to achieve, and I'll be damned if I let you achieve.
Gina Grad. That was the news with Gina Grad.
Well, let me tell you about my friend Jordan Harbinger. All right. Oh, good. We have another Carlton doorman clip.
I was getting worried.
This is a big part of my childhood, by the way.
Obviously.
This is Carlton, your doorman.
Wait a minute. This is Carlton, your doorman.
That was
hot
Carlton, your
comedy.
doorman.
Classic team.
Yeah.
A lot of range. All right. San Diego mic drop coming up October 28th and 29th. We'll do some live pod there and some stand-up there as well. And then Las Vegas, St. Louis, Tucson, Tempe. You can go to a theater club nearest you. The Accursed is the name of the movie. It's out on October 14th in theaters and then on demand. WorldFoodBank.org is where you go if you want to help a very worthy cause. And until next time, this is Adam for Smriti and Mena and Gina and Richard and Bald. Say it. Mahalo.